Nasca Ceramics are some of the best and most exciting ceramics of the New World. They do develop out of Paracas, and we'd expect that. There is a cultural continuation. They are going to change their technology, however. They're going to focus on very, very colorful slip decorations. What we're going to do is flatten the surface, and we're no longer going to use resin, which projects a little bit and sometimes actually gives the illusion of a little bit bumpier surface. The Nasca ceramics are going to provide the most color of any ceramics that are created in all of the Americas. So these folks do love color. The images also are going to wrap around the vessel, and I've put up there that the vessel shape actually becomes a kind of canvas. The surface also is going to be very highly burnished, and that stage of the development of the ceramic vessel will take place after the slip color has been put on and everything is just about ready to be fired. We think that in fact the vessels might have been varnished more than once to achieve such a high degree of shine. As part of the style, we also believe that Nasca is going to continue the use of black line outlines. So it's very, very linear. And it's also going to give us incredible imaginative vessel forms. And I have one example for you right here, and they get even more inventive later on. But this is a killer whale in my lower right, and that is a vessel completely sculpted, I'm going to suggest, in the shape of a whale with the, what is this, arms or fins, whatever whales have, being used as forward supports, and then the tail of the whale helping to hold the back up so that we actually have 3 points of contact. We do think that the drawing and painting was accomplished by the use of a turntable. So we're putting the ceramic vessel on a turning wheel. This is not a potter's wheel. This is just a wheel that's going to help the artist to rotate the vessel so that he can work on all sides of the vessel, creating the image. And if you look at my hummingbird, which I think is a really sophisticated image, you can see the way in which the hummingbird tail kind of takes us around and moves us in the direction of the vessel. You can also see the way in which the hummingbird seems to use its extended beak to take nectar from the flower form that is coming down from the double spout and bridge. And that would be the classic Nasca shape, so that we have 2 spouts and a bridge form between them. The Nasca artist then is also simply more concerned with an overall design than with illusion. These are decorative. They're charming, they're delightful, they're energized often, but they are also decorative. What we're looking at here, all 3 of the slides that are on the screen, this represents the early Nasca style. And what archaeologists have been able to do is serrate these over time to break them down into phases, multiple phases, usually numbered. We're not going to do that. We're just simply going to say there's an early, there's a middle, and there's a late Nasca phase. And it's really, really easy to see. And it is easy to determine through excavations. The earliest Nasca pottery looks like this. It tends to be reasonably naturalistic. Often it has a cream background. You can see that that's not always true. But they are images that tend to be very easy to read. And I also like to suggest that they are generally sophisticated in form. These are some of the early Nasca samples that you actually have in the textbook, and they can be found figure 8 to 60. One of them on the right is a tern catching a fish, and that resembles the hummingbird vessel that I just showed you. A little bit more simplified, perhaps. Much of Nasca imagery does come from the natural world, and in this case, being a coastal community, the seabirds, and a tern is a seabird, would have been particularly important subjects for the Nasca. The image in the center is a tuber. That's a plant. It would grow, the tuber itself would grow underground, and it would put out shoots above the level of the earth. The vessel itself is pretty sophisticated, covered with dynamic design that actually suggests the kind of bulging growth of the plant. One of the common themes in Nasca, of course, is agriculture, and that vessel in the middle would represent that. In addition to the theme of producing agricultural products, perhaps also themes relating to the coast where we could acquire food, fish, and so forth, we also have a pretty common subject in the upper left, and that is a depiction of the shaman. This is figure 58 in our textbook, and this is a pretty cool vessel. It is a drum vessel, and the base of this, right down here, would actually have been covered with animal skin, so the whole thing would have been flipped over, and you could actually use it in music making. It is fairly clear that it is a shaman being depicted. We've seen this before. When we looked at this earlier, we talked about the mouth mask and also the forehead ornament that was a part of this creation. Both of those help to transform the wearer to the level of being a shaman and altering his reality so that he, the shaman, actually becomes a supernatural. One of the things that our textbook is going to point out is the eyes. These eyes are sometimes referred to as trance eyes, the Nasca trance eye image, and what it does with these bulging, whitely outlined eyes is to suggest the altered state of existence or reality of the shaman as he is being portrayed to you in a state of transformation. This is also an important vessel because if you go right down here, and also if you go over here, you're going to see that the shaman does hold trophy heads. This is a very, very common subject within Nasca depictions, and I have, for your delight, in the lower right and middle section of the screen, some examples of Nasca trophy heads. These trophy heads were acquired through excavations in the south coast, and indeed they do show that there was a rope attached through a hole that was placed in the forehead of the victim. In this one you can see the hole, and in these two samples you can see the rope. Over here you can see the braided rope that comes out of the head of the trophy head. We also have images as well as real trophy heads where you can see the eyes are closed and the lips of the trophy head have been sewn together. The shaman who holds these trophy heads, we don't know if it was the shaman who actually acquires them physically or if perhaps this is just a symbolic image of the shaman taking trophy heads. We do know that Nasca warriors acquired trophy heads. We also know that the head is associated with the spirit of the individual. And especially in reference to the shaman, it would relate to vision and the idea of the shaman being able to travel, to see, to experience, and to encounter the other realms. In other words, bottom line, cutting to the chase here on trophy heads, we do think that they reference spiritual power, particularly when we're talking about the shaman. This is figure 57. We've already seen this. It is our amazing step and wave vessel. First off, I need to tell you this is late Nasca. This is much more complex in its design, so much so that it begins to get difficult to read the images. And that is a determination that will in fact help you to separate the styles of Nasca. It is trophy head taking. And it is being done apparently, again, I can't tell you for sure, if the shamans themselves actually went out and acted as warriors or if other warriors are acquiring trophy heads for the shamans. but the wings that come out of these figures, and that's, if we go over here, it might be easier to see. These figures, because they're winged, might indeed represent shamans. The one that's on our left, and that's this guy right here, is apparently in the process of removing the head of this individual who does indeed seem to be resisting. He doesn't want to let go of his head. The shaman figure here, the warrior figure, and I think we can call him warrior, is also wearing a jaguar cape. You can see the spots of the jaguar, the supernatural cat that is associated with shamans and also with the Amazon. He holds a blade. The blade is over here above the individual whose head is about to be lost. And I'd also like to point out that because of his positioning, it may indeed, he's on the step side of this, it may indeed reference the fact that he is performing this ritual on a stepped pyramid. A stepped pyramid could indeed be considered to be a mountain shape appropriate to ritual sacrifice for the gods. There are other images in this also. There's a figure down here, and then, as I've already pointed out, the figure up there. So we're getting 3 combatants who are in the process of taking trophy heads. This is a detailed examination of the 2 sides, and it is generally considered to be late Nasca because of the confusion of the images. The Nasca potters, however, do indeed continue with inventive shapes, and this one is really rather extraordinary because it engages with the use of negative space making up a portion of the vessel. This is an example of Nasca in the middle phase. Okay, we've seen early. We are now looking at middle. I'm going to come back to late in a moment. This is a middle Nasca vessel. In fact, 2 middle Nasca vessels. They also are images of shamans. They are becoming increasingly difficult to read. On figure 62 and 63, and that's the image on the left, you have a rollout, and that's this, which shows the shaman, the face of the shaman. That's located right here. And the face of the shaman, again, has a mouth mask as well as a forehead mask that he's wearing. But his body now really curves around the vessel and becomes something of a vision serpent. It suggests literally that the shaman is traveling and that the shaman is flying. I have at the bottom for us just the reminder of what the mouth mask looks like, and I've added in a forehead mask. That one happens to come from the Cleveland Museum of Art, and these all deal with transformation. Okay, this is our forehead mask, this is our mouth mask, and that is essentially a part of the garb of the shaman. This middle Nasca style does continue the early Nasca subject of the shaman, and that is going to become even more complex, more difficult to read when we get to late Nasca. This is an example of a late Nasca flying shaman. And every time I look at this, I get the feeling that somebody has plugged that shaman in and he's being electrocuted. It seems to move with sharp points and incredible energy, and it almost suggests that it is bursting from the surface of the vessel. It's also really, really hard to read, and that is the case for the material that occurs at the end of the development of Nasca Ceramics. You can, on both of these are 2 different vessels, and they're both late, you can, however, still make out those shaman eyes. And those are the trance eyes that are conveyed, and I'm seeing a pair right here that are pretty easy to read, that are indicative of the state of the shaman in his altered reality. The piece that's on our lower right, below the band that contains the shaman, there are a series of trophy heads that have been included. So over the course of development, a few hundred years for Nasca, we maintain similar subjects, but the visible expression, the style, is going to change. The subject matter of our ceramic wares will show up in the pretty famous Nasca lines. Please take a look at the article I've included on those lines.